Welcome to Korean History Channel Behind Palace Walls. This video is a non-fiction content reconstructed based on historical facts and events. Some scenes may have been dramatized to aid viewer understanding.
A shocking incident that actually occurred during the reign of King Jungjong of Joseon. An unprecedented case of moral corruption where a Yangban family's daughter-in-law poisoned her father-in-law and even murdered her husband. We unveil the chilling details of this case. In the 14th year of King Jungjong's reign, an incident erupted that turned Hanyang upside down. A daughter-in-law from a Yangban family poisoned her father-in-law and ultimately murdered her own husband. How can a person do such a thing? Even court ministers were shocked beyond words by this incident. Behind this unprecedented case of moral corruption, recorded even in the Veritable Records, lay the dark underbelly of Joseon's aristocratic families that we never imagined. Today we will thoroughly investigate the complete details of this shocking incident from 500 years ago. The 14th year of King Jungjong, 1519 AD. This year is remembered in Joseon history as the year of the Gyeonggi literati purge. It was a bloody year when the Saram faction, including Gwangju, was purged en masse. However, there was an incident that shook the common people no less than this political upheaval, the Lady Kang Patricide case, called the biggest scandal since the Eo Uludong incident. The scene of the incident was Gwangju in Gyeonggi province, present-day Seongnam area. There was an aristocratic family that had lived there for generations. The family elder at the time was a man called Scholar Park. Although he never reached high office, he was a local dignitary who owned abundant fields and dozens of slaves. Scholar Park had a late-born only son, Park Chi-mun. Park Chi-mun, who remained unmarried past 30, finally found a match when he was nearly 40. The bride was a daughter from the Kang family who came up from Seongnam. Here the first seeds of tragedy were sown. Lady Kang was 26 at the time, a complete spinster by Joseon Dynasty standards. Her family was a ruined Yangban household, and her father was a drunkard and wastrel buried in debt. The marriage was essentially a transaction. The Park family desperately needed a daughter-in-law to continue the lineage, and the Kang family needed money to pay off debts. It's said that Lady Kang's father practically sold his daughter and used the wedding gifts to settle his gambling debts. The Veritable Records state, Lady Kang had outstanding appearance, but her temperament was sinister and cunning. From the first day after marriage, she did not respect her parents-in-law and looked down upon her husband. Of course, this was recorded after the incident, so it may be somewhat exaggerated. But what is certain is that this marriage harbored seeds of misfortune from the beginning. After Lady Kang joined the household, the family atmosphere deteriorated rapidly. Her husband Park Chi-mun had a weak personality with no interest in scholarship. In short, an incompetent person. At 40, still unable to escape his father's shadow, he was a wastrel who spent his days drinking. Lady Kang thoroughly despised this husband. According to unofficial histories, 3 days after marriage, Lady Kang reportedly said to her husband, "How can I grow old with a person like you? It would be better to die." But the bigger problem was conflict with her father-in-law, Scholar Park. Scholar Park was the epitome of an old-fashioned aristocrat. He demanded his daughter-in-law greet him from dawn, serve him 3 meals a day personally, and mercilessly scolded her for the slightest displeasure. For Lady Kang, who grew up in a ruined household, this was utterly unbearable. The conflict deepened, and around the time of her first anniversary in the household, a terrible plan began to sprout in Lady Kang's mind. Spring of the 15th year of King Jungjong. Lady Kang meets someone under the guise of chance. It was Wolseon, a shaman living in the neighboring village. Wolseon was not an ordinary shaman. She was skilled in various secret formulas and poison making, already suspected as the mastermind behind several accidental deaths. Lady Kang approached Wolseon and made a secret request. "Can you obtain medicine that harms people but leaves no trace?" Wolseon initially refused, but eventually surrendered before the gold hairpin and silver coins Lady Kang offered. Among the poisons secretly circulated in Joseon at the time was bisang, arsenic. This poison, with arsenic as its main component, was nearly colorless and odorless, and almost impossible to detect when mixed with food. Wolseon handed Lady Kang the arsenic and said, You cannot use much at once. Little by little, very little by little, if you mix it in food, it will look like death by illness. Starting that summer, Lady Kang began putting arsenic in her father-in-law's food, at first in very small amounts. Scholar Park gradually began to weaken. At first it was attributed to summer heat, and in autumn to seasonal illness. But when winter came, the symptoms rapidly worsened. Vomiting and diarrhea repeated, his hands and feet went numb, and black spots began appearing on his skin. These were typical arsenic poisoning symptoms, but the physicians of the time did not recognize them. His old age is so advanced that recovery seems difficult. At the physician's diagnosis, Park Ji-moon shed tears, while Lady Kang secretly rejoiced. In the first month of the 16th year of King Jungjong, Scholar Park finally closed his eyes, age 72. Everyone believed it was natural death from old age, but the problem did not end here. After her father-in-law's death, Lady Kang thought she had finally become the master of this household. She began treating the slaves carelessly and tried to dispose of the family's property as she wished. But an unexpected obstacle appeared. It was her husband, Park Ji-moon. Park Ji-moon, usually incompetent and weak, began to change after his father's death. He tried to protect his father's inheritance and stop Lady Kang's tyranny. "You are merely the daughter-in-law of this house. Do not try to dispose of the property carelessly." Lady Kang was furious. In her eyes, Park Ji-moon was still just an incompetent husband. How dare such a person try to stop her? There was a bigger problem. Park Ji-moon began to have doubts about his father's death. Before father passed away, there were strange things. Why did his condition worsen only after eating food you served? Lady Kang's spine chilled. If left alone, everything would be exposed. Lady Kang sought out Wolseon again. "I need to eliminate one more person." Wolseon shook her head. "If you kill your husband too, you cannot escape suspicion. That's impossible." But Lady Kang did not back down. "Find a way, otherwise you will die with me." Threatened, Wolseon finally devised a new plan: eliminate Park Ji-moon by means other than poison. Late spring of the 16th year of King Jungjong. Lady Kang executes an astonishing plan. She first enticed her husband, Park Ji-moon, proposing they go hunting far away. Since their marital relationship was poor, Park Ji-moon was puzzled. But when Lady Kang suddenly changed her attitude and acted affectionately, his heart wavered. "Darling, how about we start over? Now that father has passed, let's live well together." Park Ji-moon was moved by his wife's sudden change. He accepted his wife's proposal and departed for hunting in the mountains near Gwangju. But this was a trap. Lady Kang had already hired 2 thugs she met through Wolseon's introduction. They were to disguise themselves as bandits and attack Park Ji-moon. The second day of hunting, Park Ji-moon became separated from his companions while chasing a wild boar. Just then, 2 men emerged from the forest. "Spare me! I am the son of Scholar Park of Gwangju. If you need money, I will give it." But the men surrounded Park Ji-moon without a word. Gleaming swords were in their hands. Park Ji-moon fought desperately but was no match. He died on the spot, stabbed 17 times. After the crime, the men stole the valuables Park Ji-moon carried and fled. When her husband did not return, Lady Kang sent a search party, and the next day Park Ji-moon's body was discovered. He clearly fell victim to bandits. This was the authorities' judgment. Lady Kang wailed, pretending to mourn her husband's death. Her acting was perfect. But heaven does not permit the perfect crime. 2 months after the incident, truth began to emerge from an unexpected place. One of the 2 thugs who killed Park Ji-moon made a mistake at a tavern. Drunk, he boasted to a companion, "You know we took out that Gwangju gentleman? We can play around for a while with that money." Unfortunately, a police officer sitting nearby overheard this. The officer immediately arrested them, and during interrogation, shocking truth was revealed. The one who hired us was that gentleman's wife. A shaman named Wolseon brokered it. The authorities immediately arrested Wolseon. Wolseon firmly denied at first, but after 10 strokes of the cane, confessed everything. It was Lady Kang who ordered it. She also poisoned her father-in-law. This confession shook Joseon society. A daughter-in-law poisoned her father-in-law and even murdered her husband. This was not a simple murder case. It was the ultimate moral corruption that shook the foundation of Confucian society. Lady Kang was immediately arrested and sent to the Royal Investigation Bureau. The interrogation was brutal. Lady Kang initially denied everything to the end. "I am innocent. This is Wolseon's slander." But evidence overflowed. Records of purchasing arsenic, the source of valuables given to the thugs, and above all, Wolseon's detailed testimony. Finally, Lady Kang confessed everything. "Yes, I did it. I killed my father-in-law and I killed my husband." The interrogator asked, "Why did you commit such horrible acts?" Lady Kang gritted her teeth and answered, "Do you even know my life? I was sold into an unwanted marriage and worked like a slave. My husband was an incompetent drunkard, and my father-in-law treated me worse than a slave. I just wanted to live like a human being." This statement is also recorded in the Veritable Records. Of course, Joseon society did not listen to Lady Kang's argument. Her words were merely accepted as excuses for moral corruption. King Jungjong was greatly angered when this case was reported. "Those who violate human ethics must be severely punished. Where in the world is such a vicious woman?" Lady Kang was sentenced to dismemberment, the worst punishment in the Joseon dynasty. Accomplices Wolseon and the two thugs also received the same sentence. Autumn of the 16th year of King Jungjong. Lady Kang was dismembered in the marketplace. Countless crowds gathered to witness her final moments. People threw stones and poured out curses. "Unfilial child! Fall into hell!" Lady Kang disappeared as due on the execution ground, eyes wide open to the end. She was not yet 30 years old. After the incident, the court took various measures using this as a lesson. First, they ensured more thorough investigation of both families' backgrounds during marriage. Second, they strengthened crackdowns on poison distribution. Third, they emphasized more thorough education on daughter-in-law virtues. But ironically, this incident continued to circulate as unofficial history and folk tales until late Joseon, remaining on people's lips. Some cursed Lady Kang as a villainess, while others pitied her as an unfortunate victim. The Park family completely declined after this incident. Not only was the lineage cut off, but they bore the stigma of being a family of moral corruption. Hundreds of years later, how should we view this incident? The Lady Kang incident is not merely a case of moral corruption. It is also a tragic example showing how oppressive women's lives were in the Joseon era. Of course, murder cannot be justified for any reason. However, we must also think about the social structure that drove a woman to such an extreme choice. History cannot be judged simply as right or wrong. The effort to understand human suffering within the context of that era, isn't that true historical study? This is where today's story ends. Thank you for watching. We'll return with more fascinating stories and intriguing topics. Behind Palace Walls, thank you.